Uh-oh. What's going on here? Are you
We see the Gulf states slide, but we see the other slide, the next slide. We're seeing like presenter's view.
okay? How do I get out of presenter's view?
Well, hit the OK first. I think is that yours or mine? Where it's maybe that's mine. Um, there, you're out of it now. Try going back in.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, excited to be here.
We're having problems.
Well, I'm sure you can fix it.
We see a lot of expensive pipelines with
Yeah,
more to come.
What are you trying to do here?
I'm trying to get out of presenter's view.
Which is all of those there. Let's see.
Hi.
Oh, here.
Oh, okay.
Did
That's it.
I did it?
Yep. We see go with the flow though, not the last slide. You may want to go back one.
Okay. I I I
There it is.
I learned what button to push.
Ah, that's what I was referencing, John.
I
You
love when
have
your wife tells you which button to push.
No, I didn't tell him. He figured it out.
Oh,
no.
I do that at other times.
there you go.
Well, we all keep coming back to John Lee podcasts slash TED Talks because he has an algorithm in which he knows which of our buttons to push.
It's the
You're
dopamine
a victim
learning.
of that algorithm.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. All right. So the first slide is we indulge our fascination with maps. And so the pipelines could get around the Strait of Hormuz conundrum pretty easy. There's a lot of pipelines and a lot of options. Saudi Arabia, I think, has got the biggest one going straight across to the Red Sea. But now the Houthis are gearing up to harass that one. Um, uh, in Iraq, it's got pipelines heading off to Syria and even Turkey. Um, so the the shipping though is the cheapest. So here's what it costs to ship oil in a tanker. Um, Pretty darn cheap. So that pipeline you saw, that large pipeline, that's more expensive, but still way less expensive than by a truck or a rail.
Hey, John, this is Tom. Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Oop, backward, not forward.
Keep going back. So let me ask that. Yeah, that first slide. I wanted to ask a question about that first slide. So, what country are the Houthis in?
Yemen.
Okay, thank you.
That bottom corner, yeah, right there.
Yeah, that was my question. I didn't know what country they were in.
Yeah. And where was Osama bin Laden from?
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Yemen. His father
Oh.
was a big time engineer, and he was most famous for having redone Mecca, everything in Mecca, tore it down, modernized it. That was his father. But Yemen, yeah.
Hey,
All right. This really, there's a occasional graphic that just grabs you and you start thinking and thinking and thinking. And this one made me really start thinking, uh, this article in particular. So South Korea got a huge windfall from chip making, just the right place, right time, a surge in stock. And what did they do? They started thinking about how they could do a wealth fund. And uh, it's such a innovative approach that it's reshaping the whole country. And it just brings to mind all those gray areas that are not capitalist, not socialist, but are state related. And so I just sort of started spitballing, and I'm going to share my fantasies with you, and you can pile on. But
Hey, John, this is Tom again. Can you go back a slide?
sure.
So I got a question. I'm always sort of leery about charts like that. So are these in some kind of constant dollars? And by that I mean, are they all in inflation adjusted in like $2010?
Well, uh, I don't know.
I gotta guess it's, well, yeah, I don't yeah, because like the price of a house back in 2010 might have cost whatever, and today it costs whatever. But if you take into account inflation, it doesn't look as bad.
Yeah.
This is a stock index. It's not inflation adjusted. It's the actual value of the index as published or as calculated and published at any time. But this chart is still striking, and more striking than you might know, because it's log scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that red line dashing up after 2025, you got to add another inch to that.
Or more.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't know the ins and outs. I'm just taking the larger point that a windfall in wealth, how should a society handle it? And they should handle it communally. And that's what South Korea is doing. They're setting up like uh, uh, what Alaska did. Alaska has a sovereign wealth fund, if you wish, and uh, so it's not totally strange to us. Uh, but other communal efforts with extra money, intellectual investment. And we're familiar with the Manhattan Project when we were fighting for our lives. Um, and we also have DARPA, which it has invested in long range technology that has benefited us. And it even goes back in history to British Royal Academies, or with the French Revolution, they set up scientific panels where extra money was used to intellectual investment. And then the Alaska oil, it's called the Permanent Fund. And in general, all these efforts are insulated from the buffeting of the marketplace and left to percolate and see what new ideas can come up to benefit the public. Um, so Norway has one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds. So this Korean thing is just a long line. Um, and DARPA, Department of Defense Agency, that in our lifetime was created in response to Sputnik. Uh, so uh, this activity, there's a lot that goes on kind of below the surface, but it's all very positive for society to be able to invest in high risk, high reward moonshots, literally. And so you've had similar efforts spin off the internet, GPS, uh, and so anyway, that's the doodlings of my mind in response to South Korea's windfall.
Well, and
Well,
John, I had a classmate in med school who was from Alaska, and she got a check every year for like $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like, what? Your state is paying you? You
yeah,
have no taxes and you're getting money from the state.
yeah.
Yeah. It's,
John, can I ask, how is DARPA? I know that they fund high risk, high reward research, but how do they gain funds from it, and do they reinvest them?
I can't answer that at the moment, but it's a good question. I don't know the details. I just know it fits into uh, this general um, idea of society investing in long shots.
But the idea of creating a fund to convert immediate profit into long-term benefit which is what goes on in Norway. I'm not sure that's happening with DARPA.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The internet and GPS is, and of course, Al Gore was involved in that, just uh, goosing the project. And then, of course, the Republicans made fun of him for claiming to invent the internet, but he just was ARPANET.
So, so John, let me make a comment here, and then you guys correct me if I misspeak here. So in some cases, this high risk, high reward business, the money goes back to the general
Here, the
public,
girl.
like in the case of Alaska and in the case of oil in Norway. Is that correct?
Yeah,
But in some other cases, like this internet and this response to the Sputnik and GPS and the Manhattan Project, that high risk, high reward research, it benefits us because of the technological advances. Is that sort of the thinking?
yeah. Yeah, and the intended advances and also the unintended advances. Yeah, the things that I'm not sure they thought GPS was going to come out of the research, but it did. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, there's some other benefits to this stuff. Is like, way back in the 60s and the 70s, Sputnik and all that sort of stuff, that created a lot of jobs and stuff and developed some communities.
yeah, and most famously the powdered drink Tang. Uh, that was used on the moonshots.
Yeah, and I guess, maybe instant coffee came out of there and, TV dinners.
There you go. Anyway, well, thanks for letting me spitball. The other two examples, university endowments are kind of getting at this concept through the back door. Um, and we shouldn't forget the Human Genome Project, which was famously a public, private endeavor. And there was a competition between the public. Oh, what's the name of the guy that was at the head. Interesting guy, a believing Christian, and he worked with Fauci.
You
Um,
mean, I think it was Collins, is that right?
yes, thank you. Exactly. Very interesting guy, Francis Collins.
Yes.
He came to public meetings with his guitar, and at the recess would sing religious songs or
Well,
inspirational songs.
I think we're confusing two things. We're confusing government investment in research that benefits the public through the benefits of the product of the research, like the internet. That's different from a sovereign wealth fund, where the government is investing in companies that make the product. So they're earning money directly from the project. It's not that the product is good for all mankind, like certain medical research is, maybe the internet was, because I don't know how our government directly profits from the internet. Perhaps they tax it somehow. I don't know. But the whole idea of a sovereign wealth fund is you create wealth and then you participate in collecting that wealth and redistribute to the population. So funding good research is one thing. The sovereign wealth fund is different. It's a step beyond.
Yes, fair enough, but it's both in the larger umbrella category. I was thinking, wait a minute, this isn't capitalism, this isn't socialism, this is something else, maybe closer to socialism. But it's the state doing things that private corporations can't do. And the benefit accruing to the general public. And the thing that got me started on this, of course, is the South Korean windfall. Um, but fair enough, we're throwing, as we fantasize, we're flowing a lot of different concepts into the stew.
Yeah, Homer is quite right. I mean, sovereign wealth funds are a solution to a problem of excess wealth generation because they, for the most part, have had enormous uh, gas, crude oil supplies. It's a case that's how Alaska got to pay out $2,000 or $3,000 every year to its citizens. Norway decided not to use the wealth of its North Sea oil because they thought that would create a rather odd-looking society. So they just put it in a fund and essentially lock it away, and it keeps growing. And Homer's quite right; it's just invested in what are the best investment. It's a well-distributed asset diversification project. And in Saudi Arabia, well, obviously they have excess wealth generated, but they've used their sovereign wealth fund for social and political reasons, angles as well, like the live golf circuit, trying to,
Yeah.
Saudi wash international sports. And you see that in the soccer league as well. Back to the South Korean stock index, that graph shows more that the South Korean stock index was asleep for 15 years and woke up a year ago when Samsung and Hinks, the chip maker, which rivals NVIDIA, got going and were driven by investor exuberance.
Yeah.
But anyway, well,
I-
good. It's yes, you're getting to probably the fundamentals of what creates rapidly growing GDP. How does it work?
Yeah, I had a slide that looked at that data from Samsung, but I decided it was too much.
Hey, John, this is Tom.
Yeah.
So I got a question. I know my answer, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys say about it. How does artificial intelligence fit into this concept?
Well, the South Korean one is peripherally related to artificial intelligence because some of the chips that they were making were used in artificial intelligence. But sure, there's going to be windfall profits big time, and the government's got to be involved just to control it. So this whole field of endeavor, where the state works in creating wealth, and it therefore should have some say in how to spend it for the benefit of the society as a whole. So, to say nothing about putting up safeguards to keep the use of it responsible. But yeah, okay. All right. Well, I'm glad we got a little discussion out of that. If we're done, I'll just go on to another slide that got me, which is how American states get revenue. So we talk, and property taxes is a big one, but when there are two categories: states that rely on taxing income, and states that rely on taxing consumption. Now, I suppose property tax is like consumption, but these two categories contrast, and Democrats prefer graduated income tax because income tax is progressive, whereas consumption tax are regressive. Yeah, the rich don't pay more. The poor pay the same as the rich, and they wind up having to spend a greater percent of their income, which makes it regressive. And this is just striking. You can make out the schematic figure of the United States. And here's California out here. Some of us, somebody needs to mute. Somebody needs to mute. So you see California sitting out here. Some of us may be paying up in the black here, where we're paying the marginal rate of 12% to 13% more. But New York and New Jersey, DC are all in second place. But there are some states that don't have any income tax at all, Texas being one of them. But I was taken by this map. It carries a lot of information. And no surprise, it's correlated with people who vote for Democrats like Kamala Harris and Republicans like Donald Trump. So that's the marginal state income tax. Yeah, Bob.
Just a couple of comments, if I may, John. The top marginal rate of income tax in California really only impacts the top 1% of total state tax returns. You've got to have taxable income over $1 million. The rest of us don't pay anywhere near that marginal tax rate of state income tax. The second is the interesting comment, quite accurate, that democratic states tend not to like consumption taxes because they're regressive. I can name you 50 odd states in another economic community which loves consumption taxes and is categorized usually by our conservative politicians as being socialist communist states. I'm referring to the European Union, where consumption tax is around 25%. Sales taxes.
Huh. Huh.
They call it a value-added tax.
Yes, it's still a sales tax.
Oh, it is
it's
indeed.
just calculated in a very clever way.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. All right.
But hey, John, this is Tom. Before you leave that, so I mean, we in California, we pay state income taxes plus sale taxes. So what I'd be interested in to see is by each state, what's sort of like the combined number?
Then you got to add in property tax.
Yeah. So I mean, we get taxed, like you said, Homer, with property taxes, state income taxes, and sales taxes.
Yeah, and I know The Economist has done grand summaries and compared that among nations, and I think just off the top of my head, the highest taxed country usually turns out to be France. Does that sound right, Homer?
I thought it was one of the Scandinavian countries.
Well, it's interesting. Scandinavian, they're more heterogeneous, and I've read that in the last 10, 15 years, some of them have turned more uh, uh, hawkish on.
Yeah, but John, you also have to look at what people get. My nephew lives in Germany. They pay almost 50% taxes, but they get a year off. The wife gets a year off when the baby's born. They get home visiting nurses. They have an incredible transit system, a public education system that's amazing. I mean, it's not like you're just paying for the military like we do in this country.
Right. And in France, they have a wonderful creche system for pre-kindergarten care.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're cutting SNAP and early childhood education in this country
That's right.
and kicking 15 million people off Medicaid.
Right.
Yeah. Bad.
My wife's family, that's one or two you might know, is from Denmark, and the Danes' conversation would generally be complaining bitterly about the level of taxation, and then in the same breath almost saying how proud they are of all the services that people receive from the government.
And they're really high on the happiness index.
Apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'm just back from Spain, which has a GDP per capita half that of the United States. And as I gazed around Spain, parts that I visited, and you were there recently, John, I could not find anything which would tell me, if I were a visitor from Mars, how Spanish people are poorer than Americans. Now, a lot of that's to do with purchasing power parity, because you can buy a very fine glass of wine in a restaurant for €2.50, about $3, and pay twice as much for gasoline, of course. But nevertheless, that's another EU country with high tax rates.
I'll tell you
Impressed.
the one thing that really impressed us was the housing. The percent of people who live in apartments is, is much higher. And what you see as a result is at night on the streets, people pour out of their apartments onto the street to drink. There's a real street life that we don't see here. Um, but yeah, Sanchez is a socialist, so I don't know how
Well,
much longer he's going to last. But
and
well,
I guess
Sanchez was not prime minister for the decades in which all this apartment building was constructed. You're quite right, John.
yeah,
Even in small mountain towns, very small mountain towns, the density of apartment buildings is extraordinary in Spain.
yeah,
and I guess the other part to me is when you get older, what kind of services does the government provide to the older generation, to the older people? So it's a complex question, but smart economists ought to be able to figure that out.
well, and if they can't, AI will.
What can I make an observation? A couple of years ago, my wife and I visited Washington, D.C., which I suppose has a fair number of apartment buildings. And one of the things we found very interesting was in the evening, the number of people with dogs they have as pets, and the sidewalks were lined with people all walking their dogs. It was like they all get home, and this is the exercise they get, and they get their dogs and go out in the evening, probably in the morning as well. But anyway, it's a very interesting thing with all the pets you see on the sidewalk.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Any other comments? I love this. I love it when we.
Well, really low taxes are in Monaco. My neighbor moved there. He had to show that he had, I think it was $600,000 so that he could become a Monaco citizen.
Wow. Wow.
They have
Well,
low taxes. I
one
think
of the
Bjorn
things,
Borg might have been a Monaco citizen when he was making all that money on the tennis circuit.
Uh,
one of the things I would be interested in is if you have any data on Canada and the taxation there, because taxes support their so-called single payer system. And one of the things that I've read over the years is this, they don't raise enough money. They haven't been able to raise taxes to fund that system as much as people say they admire it, but they don't get enough money in on taxes to really make it more efficient and up to date. That's why they have all these long waiting lines, and some are delays on getting services in the medical system. It'd be interesting to look up taxes in Canada, especially for healthcare.
yeah, we ought to put our neighbor on that, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I love it when we go off script and it's truly interactive, a group. Uh, this is the topic that I decided to um, go to because it seems so timely for me. Maybe some of you as well. But this book has really sparked a lot of conversation, some of it very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But do I swerve away from uncomfortable topics? No, I don't. And we don't either. So this is the Economist article. And they point out the obvious that we've all noted that there are a lot of 20 somethings kids still in their parents' house, either in their basements or in their attics, and we uh, actually had a pretty intense encounter with a kid in our neighborhood who's in his 30s. He's no longer in his parents' house, but he is very, very bitter, and we could feel his anger at boomers. The ideology in the young kids is that the boomers are selfish, and this book uses the word hoarding, hoarding. That I'm not a boomer. I'm a silent generation. Some of you older people just miss being boomers by the skin of our fanny. But the dichotomy is clear. And if you go to City Hall for a meeting, a planning meeting, the planning commission, there'll be a bunch of old people, NIMBYs, not in my backyard. What about parking? That apartment building is going to block my view. And the older people who have these complaints have more leisure and they attend. So there's a bias in planning. And they vote more, especially in boring elections. The more boring the election, the fewer young people vote. Uh, and so this is the book by Samuel Moyne. And are old people like us hoarding power and wealth? And what should we do about it? He points out the obvious that Biden and Trump are in their 80s, and that the society as a whole, it's a perception that old people are blocking young people, that they're trying to preserve the life they've known rather than innovate. And so many examples spring to mind. We witnessed right here in the Bay Area Dianne Feinstein hanging on the office much longer than she should have. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a particularly painful and consequential uh, incidence of that. Um, and we don't have a good way to get rid of people. There's no term limits. There was for a while in California, but I think that's fallen by the wayside. And it goes right on up to the third in line for the presidency is Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who's 92. He's the president pro temp. Um, and power is hard to give up. We know that's a principle.
Hey, John, this is Tom. I do have a comment about age, and I thought about this a little bit. You know, in the airline business, I think at least in the United States, when you hit 65, you have to retire.
Yeah, you anticipate one of my next slides.
Oh, and you know what? Sometimes in corporations like where I used to work, when you got to a certain higher level in the company, it wasn't required, but it was standard practice, let's say, that at 65, you had to retire.
Yeah, and the Economist makes that point. That says slam dunk educational institutions. It's a huge problem. You've got a lot of old people that just don't want to leave. Robert Reich, the he just did a book and a movie called The Last Class, something like that. How he decided to retire and how hard it was. I recommend the movie in particular. the movie's named Coming Up Short uh, because Robert Reich's 4'11". Um, but and in addition to airplane pilots, and I think it's 55, air traffic controllers also have age limits for obvious reasons. Uh, but the economist endorses what you just said, that business does not have this problem, that when it comes to making money, uh, getting young, smart people in your organization coming up, there's a tremendous incentive. So there's less of a problem, people hanging on to power. Um, so, how much are the boomers to blame, or is it just the right place, right time? Homer will be and uh, Mike and Pepper will be familiar with this squaring of the curve. This is represents the advances in medicine, and this is at different years. This can be used in one of two ways. How many people are still alive, the percent surviving at age, and the later it gets, the longer old people make it. And then there's something called a morbidity curve, which is fine. Okay, so you're living, but how are you symptom wise? And so you get morbidity curves where what percent of the population is symptom free, or if not symptom free, at least disability free. And so medical science has enabled the boomers to live longer. And there's so many of them that affect their generation because of the sudden surge at the end of World War II had extreme effect.
John, we're missing 2000 and 2020.
Yeah, this is
Are the curves, do you think, just going to keep moving over to the right and getting steeper and steeper?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Because that's 40 years ago, the last curve.
Yeah. That was the prettiest one I could find. Um, so and so yeah, they vote more, and so even young politicians, not being old themselves, are pretty much dictated to by the elderly and their vote, and the they have the age of the average voter in general in America is 52. But if you look at just people who voted in the primaries, and these are the ones that wind up picking the most extreme members of each party, these voters from the primary are 65. So the older you are, the more electoral oomph you have. And then why it's hard, we've been hearing people talk about uh, 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 reform of entitlements for forever.
It is astounding
They
how
just don't,
significantly
they just
one
don't.
idea can shape a society and its policies.
Uh, and so the attack ads, if you propose to cut Social Security or Medicare, um, and you'll get an attack ad. You're pushing Granny off a cliff. Uh, so the other thing with ballot initiatives, especially taxes, you get a tax that's earmarked for the school fund, and it goes on to the ballot as an initiative. Uh, Out here, we learned quite early that Rossmore would not vote for school improvement bonds. So that was sad. And in general, older people don't worry about debt as much because, as Trump says, yeah, I'll be gone. And he's added more to the national debt than any president in history. We're not surprised. Um,
Even Roosevelt,
yeah,
inflation.
yeah.
Trust me. Should I not?
And so, and climate change is a hoax because he's not going to be around to experience the error of that.
Hey, John, this is Tom. Go back one slide, please. So you know where it says has added more to the national debt. I always question numbers like that because
fog and cooling.
He might have added more to the national debt, but is it inflation adjusted? And is it another way of looking at it is per person who's living at the time? Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, those are wrinkles I don't have an answer for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because the presidents come out and, pound on their chest saying that, the population is making more money. Well, yeah, the population is making more money because there's more population.
You will see figures on the debt as a proportion of GDP, and it was highest in World War II. We're currently second to that.
Yeah, World War II is a special case. That's for sure. Okay. Um, and so I was talking about this neighbor, and boy, he was really disenchanted. And some young people are so disenchanted. Maybe you've seen some of these surveys. They don't believe in democracy anymore because it's been so distorted by our generation, if not us necessarily, but boomers and the way we control City Hall, and we vote more, and they're working, yeah, right. So it's hard for them to get to the polls. So Robert Wright took a crack at this. Uh, the interesting thing, mandatory retirement. That's a hot topic. And the economist makes a point of saying that that doesn't necessarily keep jobs from younger people. That the lump of labor fallacy is that there's only a fixed amount of work to do. And work is so dynamic and depends on so many variables that you can't just assume. And that was Article 1 today. And the mandatory retirement laws were rescinded. Mandatory retirement is now illegal. And so, but Moyne engages in a little bit, he's kind of provocative, saying, how's come old people keep working longer? Are they addicted to work? Do they think they're so important? Uh, why don't they reimagine the meaning of their lives? Why don't they develop hobbies? And the economist takes a pot shot at him. He's advocating like, I'm from the government and I'm here to teach you pickleball, tongue in cheek. But so his work has been roundly criticized. Um, so uh, he even comes up with a proposition that older people, because they can vote more and easier, maybe they shouldn't have a full vote. Maybe they should, he even goes down to a tenth of a vote of younger people. Or maybe you should give 18 to 25-year-olds who have a bigger stake in the future, 2 votes. So very controversial. I remember Lee Kuan Yew, who founded Singapore. He had advocated that people with children get 2 votes, that they deserved it to protect their children's future. But all this gets at how do young and old compete to have a say in the future of their society. So this
Yeah, hey, John, this is Tom. I wanted to ask a question here. It'd be sort of interesting to see a breakdown in the United States of how many people there are in a certain age group, because my guess is that there's not too many 80 and 90-year olds voting. Or let me rephrase that. There is not a huge population of 80 and 90-year olds. But, the 20 to the 50-year olds, there's probably a lot more than there are 80 and 90-year olds. So if the people went out and voted, if all the people went out and voted in those different age groups, the 20 to 50-year olds would have more of a say if they all went out and voted.
Yeah, but the point he's making is that they work, they don't have the leisure. Preferentially, the older you are, the more leisure you have. Therefore, you're more likely to vote. But
Yeah, mail-in ballots should help.
Yeah, that's another good point.
what's that?
Mail-in ballots help for
Oh, sure, absolutely, absolutely. So Ross Douthat had this author on, and it was a very good conversation. And I'm going to summarize it, but not today, because we had such a rich uh, uh, interchange early, that I'm going to hold that off for next time. But I'll throw the uh, floor open for more general comments.
So this is Tom again. So I used to work in the money making business, okay? And so the deal was that after about 10 years, the chairman, the chief executive officer, he would generally leave. One of the reasons why is they wanted new, fresh ideas in the business. If a guy's there for 15, 20 years, it sort of gets a little stale. So that's why they always like to switch up. And to be quite honest with you, when you're the chief executive officer, like the president of the United States, if you're in that job for 8 years or 10 years, you get worn out. You get worn down with all the travel and all that sort of stuff. So that's why in the money making business, they switch up every 8 to 10 years, at
Yeah,
least where I was working.
yeah. So I did a lot of administration when I worked out at the county, and it seemed like uh, going to lectures on the theory of administration. It seemed like the opinion settled on 7 years. If you're in the same position for 7 years or more, uh, it's not good for you, and it's not good for your organization. And that plus or minus a few years, that That makes an intuitive sense for me. Yeah. Michael.
Yeah, one of the things in the book on gerontology or gerontocracy, I'm sorry, uh, that I thought was a very interesting idea and proposal, and I think he quoted the Latin word for Senate. Anyways, his proposal was to get rid of the Senate in our federal government, at least, and it has a certain appeal because the so-called upper house, with guys who've been there forever, Chuck Grassley being an example, the average age of the senators is probably somewhere upwards of 70. Just look at here's what's from Kentucky. Um, anyway,
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, he just got out of the hospital. He's going to be in some kind of rehab or something. I mean, the upper house has got people who've been there forever and ever, and they hold things up. I mean, they can just create all kinds of log jams and things with the filibuster and so on. And this is one of the ideas Moyn, Moyn, the author proposed, and I thought that's a great idea because essentially the Senate is this. It's sort of like this old men who sit around and contemplate and cogitate, and nothing gets really accomplished until they finally, through some parliamentary procedure, get things moving. And I said, maybe the idea of getting rid of the Senate and just having a House of Representatives. And I think some states, Nebraska is one, isn't it, that doesn't have a Senate. They just have the one chamber, as it were. And that the idea that a House of Representatives would be filled with younger people, which it is in many ways, because they have a turnover every 2 years and they're younger people. In fact, today, Janine, my wife, was watching a thing about what's her, Alexandria OAC.
Ocasio-Cortez.
She's talking about freezing her eggs so that she can have a baby later on because she's so busy with all this stuff that she's doing in the House of Representatives. The idea is that the gerontocracy, particularly in the Senate, just makes a mess of our government.
Yeah, if it weren't for the Senate, we'd have the SAVE Act would be passed.
Well, yeah, but it's here are 50, I mean 100 senators, and they do all things on parliamentary procedure and this, that, and the other, and the filibuster. I mean, he proposes in his
POV.
book
I
getting
overpacked,
rid
but
of the
only
Senate.
wore this hoodie.
Hey.
Every time I travel, the first
You
thing I
here?
pack is this hoodie. Airplanes are either flying.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, no, that he proposes, and it's an interesting idea, at least because we have the same thing in this state. We have a Senate and we have a assembly, we call it, and everything, different houses have to work their way through everything and then have a reconciliation, so on and so forth. I don't know if it's the most sufficient way of doing things. I think one of the things, it might have been in a lecture Ramsey gave, that when other countries have had the opportunity to come up with a new form of government, a democratic government, they don't choose having a bicameral legislature. They choose to have one. So our system, I think, really needs to be looked at in terms of efficiency. And the Senate in our country, particularly, and probably even in the state senates, older people have been there forever.
Anybody want to counter what Michael said?
Well, it would be a heavy lift to get rural agriculture states to give up their senators because that they have disproportionate power there.
Well, yeah, but that's pointed out.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go back to the founding fathers and why that happened, I mean, basically it was like the northeastern states had the most populations. So the northeastern states would rule the country if we just went by population. And so if you look at each individual state, there would be a couple of states with a lot of population, like California, for instance, like Texas, for instance, and the people in those states would sort of be like the rule. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Would be like the would like be like the ruling party, if you will. So that was the theory behind what the founding fathers decided.
Oh, but I keep going back to what Ramsey, if I recall, said other countries, when they've had to come up with a new form of representative government, haven't followed our example uh, for whatever reason. I mean, maybe it's, the United States with 350 million people spread over thousands of square miles and so on, and very uh, low population states still having their two senators. It's just somehow it seems to me, maybe it's in this modern day and age, it's become very inefficient.
Yeah. I know Ramsey's very interested in the European Parliament uh, and Europe in particular.
Well, that ship sailed in 1789 or so. I think, John, you're right. It's be a heavy lift. The good news is that 50 senators are below the age of 65. Let's look on the bright side.
Okay.
That's good news. This is Carol. I have a question. So I don't understand when people say one person, one vote. Is that just for presidential elections? And how would that work? Like, was we're talking about this, I mean, there's times when the Senate has really saved us from things like the SAVE Act. And then there are times when the Senate has completely um, rigged things so that it's really hard to get anything done. Um, and then I've heard people saying, they're for one person, one vote. So it would be like a nationwide election. Does anybody understand what that means?
Well, I think one person, one vote is just a farmer from rural part, because his a rural vote is worth weighted much more political influence than an urban vote. So that just is a mantra that farmers say, the one person, one vote. Just their way of saying, I'm not giving up my weighted rural vote for the Senate.
Okay, thanks.
Just a guess.
Yeah, I mean, the other simple way to look at it is then the presidential election would be decided by popular vote.
Which it should be.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you, but the founding fathers, they had another way of thinking. So
Yeah, but now we have elections where the so-called battleground states, all the attention and money is put into, what is it, something like 4 or 5 states. And if you're a Republican running as president, you didn't even bother coming to California to see if you can gin up any votes, because they just figure I think it's 54 electoral votes are going to go Democratic no matter what. So, that's the way the electoral colleges warp things.
you are correct.
Yes, you are. All right. If you have any requests for a topic next week, let me know. Otherwise, you'll get stuck with something like today.
No, I
Today
think
was great.
well, the thing about gerontocracy, I think, is very timely because, this is a very important issue. The young people are, very disenchanted. One of the things is, as you pointed out, they don't vote. A lot of times you hear about the numbers, the statistics on how many people are voting, who's eligible, and a lot of young people are just sitting it out.
Yeah.
So I
You
have a
know,
question about that because my kids vote, all of their friends vote. They're all quite liberal, and they're all over the country. So is that just the educated young people, or like who's the young people?
well, I don't know exactly where those numbers come from. I mean, in the last election we just had, I think there was some, I don't know, 30%, 25% of people are eligible to vote, voted in this last election. And we've got this one coming up in November. We're going to, one of the things that turns people off, at least in California, are all these propositions now. You've got something like 30 propositions that are going to be on the ballot. All that kind of stuff turns people off too. But I don't know how many young people out of that number of eligible voters actually vote.
So Carol, this is Tom. I'll give you an example. And
Okay,
I'm sort of making the example up here. So you know about Michigan right now, right? The
right.
who's running for the Senate in Michigan
Hmm.
is a very liberal person, correct?
Yeah,
So maybe if you're a young person and you don't care for that liberal person and you voted for the other person, when it gets time to vote in November, you might not even go out and vote. Do you follow?
right.
So that's how young people might not vote because they say, I'm not going out. I'm not even going to go out to vote, even though there are other things on the ballot, because my person didn't win in the primary.
Right, right. So are there polls that are reliable that are looking at these, counting these?
John, I'll let you answer that question. I've done enough talking. Carol, this is Tom again. I'll tell you, the last poll they had in Michigan, they had that liberal
I'll
guy
say,
winning by 10 points. And you know what happened when they conducted the poll? They saw, wow, look at all these young people coming out to support this liberal candidate. Oh, wow, maybe we ought to get more of those people in our poll. So they get more of those people in the poll. And what does the poll say? The poll says that the very liberal person's going to win by 10 points. But in reality, what really happened? They won by
yeah,
a percentage point. So me, Tom, personally, I don't believe in polls anymore because there's two parts to polls. Number
right.
one is what the questions they ask, and number two, who do they select in the poll?
Well, and how do they even find anybody? I've never been asked to participate in a poll, but maybe that's because I'm old.
Well, you know what they say is this poly market and Kalshi, where people actually have money, they're betting, is a more reliable indicator of what's going to happen. If people are stand to win or lose money based on betting that so and so is going to win the election, and they'll be more honest about what they answer when they're questioned. If somebody says, "Well, you put up $100 and you stand to win, let's say 1,000. If your candidate wins, you're going to be more honest about who you really vote for."
But Michael, let me ask you this: you gonna believe what a poll says based on betters? What about the people who don't bet?
Well, but I'm not contesting that. I mean, but they are saying that when people have who are betting. I mean, you could say, well, we'll open it up to people where you just bet $1, something like that, and there might be more people. I don't know. I mean, it's something that's happening right now, whether we like it or not. I mean, people are betting now on almost everything, including political. When is so and so going to retire? On and on and on. People are betting on this, and they say, well, if you have money, if you have skin in the game, maybe that's a more reliable indicator than asking people anonymously where You say one thing on the day the person comes to interview you, and you do another thing on the day when you go in the voting booth. So
The
I don't,
other wrinkle with people betting money and those polls being more reliable, if you have inside information,
oh yeah,
you say, "Oh, wait a minute, I've got inside information. I'm going to bet." And so what you're getting is more information going into the poll.
right. But you also get people who are more interested. I mean, one thing is just hoping to get people interested in democracy and voting. I mean, if they then get inside information, yeah, it warps the system. But at least they're showing an interest.
But warping, why is that warping? If you have inside information, you contribute it to the communal knowledge. It might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, but they don't give out that information to everybody. They keep it to themselves so they can win the bet.
Okay. All
All
right,
right.
Hey,
guys.
John, this is Tom. I got a question for you. How many times have you ever been given inside information? Me? Never.
In survey,
Yeah, John, no. I've never been given any inside information on anything. I did bet today. I put $2 down on the Powerball.
Uh, if you had inside information, I'd be interested.
Yeah, but that's my point. How many people get inside information? So is it based on inside information? Is that really reliable data for a poll? Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I don't know. All
All
right.
right. Hey, thanks a lot, John. Great session.
yeah,
This
great
was
session.
interesting.
Good session today. Okay. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Bye.
Bye.